All right, buddy. It's time for the intro, but there's no better way for me to do it than the person on the episode. So, Whit, what did we talk about?
Oh my God. We talked about how being too much is your superpower. We talked about why I bought the domain churchkarens.com. We even talked about we talked a little bit about why you're internet man.
Why I'm internet man. Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about how if you want to stand out, you have to learn how to be polarized without being an a-hole. How
Yeah.
if you can hold space for yourself and hold space for your clients, you're going to win. How your job isn't to put your clients on the path. It's to show them the path and allow them to take it when they're ready. The biggest mistake you can make is trying to convince people about the value that you provide, how to be your full flavored self, how knowing you are certifiably unemployed is a gift, how being the best employee and leading revolutions led to your journey as an entrepreneur, the struggle of being too much and not enough at the same time, while being too much is also a superpower. The key to being full flavored is awareness, and then a deep question that I'm going to share in the intro because it's so good. Where have you abandoned yourself to make other people comfortable with you? And I think that that's the best part. So we should probably let him get into the episode now.
We should do it.
Okay, so now it's time to cue the intro. Let's get into the episode. All right, everybody, welcome back. I almost yelled, but I had to tone it down. Modulation is key. Modulation is key, but I am loaded with energy because
I bring that out of people.
You do. And they don't even know who you are yet because you're talking before I do the intro, which is why I love Whitney. Whitney's like, give me space or I'll make my own space. But no, seriously, I just got done with 8 days off after facilitating 8 days of events and partying, and Whitney partied with me. And I am telling you right now, I am so excited about this, and I'm so glad the podcast is coming now after we partied in Montana together. And by party, meaning unlock levels of fire, flames, and goodness all over the world. But Whitney is the woman who helps you stand out without getting kicked out, but adds gasoline to your natural self to help you achieve and have everything you want without ever sacrificing your soul in the process. And Whitney is an absolute gem, a gift. She's in my mastermind, one of my absolute favorite husbands, one of my favorite people who I now love her husband.
Oh
and
my God.
I might join
He's
the
amazing.
BFF tripod, because you did fly him to Montana and I love it. So without further ado, Whit, welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm really, I know everyone's like, I'm excited to be here, but I'm like, no, I'm freaking out about being here.
No, I love it. I want all of it. I want all of it all the time.
Yeah.
So because you listen to the show and because you're in the mastermind and because you know what questions I ask, I'm going to ask you a different question to start. What was your absolute biggest takeaway after partying in Montana?
Oh my gosh, that's such a loaded question. It's like when people say, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song? And I'm like, why do we do this to people? It causes me anxiety.
Well, good. Give me all of it. I'm here for all of the things.
I'm like, why do I have to pick one? That I can hold space for my clients by holding space for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that if I'm going to preach to my clients, that they have to be able to find their own path. I can't then try to force them on the path that I think they should be on. That was the thing. I'm like, hey, come work with me and I'll show you how to create your own business by coloring outside the lines. And then sometimes I'm like, but in this line. And then there's resistance. And then I come crying to you because I can't figure out why I feel resistant. But those were the two biggest things, I think. And that there's no one size fits all for business, which again, that's what I preach to my clients.
I love it. And I said that Whit was here and we partied. And partied we got to do breath work together and practice together and space practice. And I'm even good at making people do art class, which is hilarious when I'm like, and you can't use words, but
yeah.
we'll open
But my
up.
art was good. My art was good. My tree was legit.
Your tree was legit. It was dope. And everyone's like, what is he talking about? I'm like, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out someday. And I love that. One of the things that I learned, right? Because facilitating for you guys, I grow immensely, unwrap, even more so space. We all really leaned into that space. And then seeing that when we transformed it and having 65 entrepreneurs in the room and kind of the party was absolutely mind blowing. And I love I love it because you and I are like the same Enneagram, which really fun,
Yeah.
really funny story. My wife and daughter just rescued Habib. Remember Habib?
I was going to ask about Habib.
So Habib made it to his new home. He has been renamed some opera singer that they feel like fit. My daughter and wife drove 48 hours in the car in 3 days to rescue this blind sheep. I'll tell you that on another podcast. But Habib made it. But on the way home, my daughter was driving and my wife was researching Enneagrams. And she's like, "Hey, what are you?" And I was like, "I'm an 8." And she's like, "Oh, we thought you were like a 1, 3, or 7." I start looking them up. I was like, "No, go look at the dark sides of 8." And she's like, "Oh yeah, nope, got it." And I was
Yeah.
Whit and I are the same. And so
Or 8.
we'll
Hardcore 8.
we'll have a lot of laughing around this. And so I'm gonna ask you the kickoff question because I feel like you have a very different perspective now after. You know, we're partying and all this stuff. And by the way, I just have to say this now that I'm recording this, everybody will hear this. I am incredibly proud of you to see
Thank you.
where you were when we met and you trusted yourself and leaped in, and the decisions and the blind leaps of faith that you took to where you are now. It just makes my heart happy. And so I just want to say I'm incredibly proud of you.
Thank you. Thank
welcome.
you.
So now looking back, when you were, lighting people's fires on businesses and, giving coaching that you wouldn't take yourself, when you look back at your entrepreneurial journey, what would you pin as like one of the biggest mistakes you've made, and how do you mitigate it now, or what was the lesson moving forward?
The biggest mistake that I made truly was spending a lot of time convincing and explaining and arguing with people that were committed to misunderstanding me and my work. Cost me a lot of time. It cost me a lot of money. And more importantly, it cost me a lot of my peace and a lot of my energy. And that is the most expensive thing we can give up, right? Is our time and our energy and our peace.
Yeah. And so like when you say that, like the biggest mistake was like arguing with people about your work, like you're like, this is what I want to do, or boom. And then they're like, no. And you're like, let me convince you.
No, I mean, I already decided. That's the thing about me. And you'll understand this, George, as aides, I don't ask for a lot of permission. I'm like, oh, we're going to do this full speed ahead. The thing was, when I was speaking up about what I was doing with women in my coaching, and I just started speaking my mind and sharing my opinions and sharing my point of views. And like, I was giving women permission to do the same, to be them. I call it being them full flavored selves, to stop watering themselves down. I was getting a lot of pushback. And then I was spending a lot of time arguing with the church Karens about why it's okay for women to be their full flavored selves. And I did that for a long time, like 2 years. This is no lie, like 2 years. I spent more time talking to the people that were never going to work with me and didn't understand me and were genuinely committed to misunderstanding me and my perspective and my point of view and the work that I do with women.
Yeah, I totally get it. And we'll unpack Church Karen in like 10 minutes. Like I almost had to spit my coffee out of my mouth moment because it brought me back to when we started talking about this.
Yeah, I bought churchkarens.com, so
I love it.
It's about to be a thing.
I love it. Well, I'll let you tell the story of Church Karens in a little while, but I think what you're saying is so prevalent. Like I don't think I've talked about this. One of the reasons that I walked away from a 7-figure business and deleted social media is because I had fought so long to like try to convince people of my worth or my value or that my message, and that I would like basically let them penetrate my own belief system, because it was like this nasty thing. And then there's a part of me that loved challenging it, right? I'm like, I'll convince you, like I'll show you. Like I was like, oh, my job's to quote unquote save everybody. You tell me I'm wrong, you tell me I'm here, and it was boom. And it almost cost me my life. Like I had to take 3 years off social media. Because when you're doing that with, 500,000 followers, like it's like boom, 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 boom. And it's like, God, no wonder why I kept getting more of it. I kept focusing on it. And so I think it's an absolutely amazing thing. But everyone's going to be like, well, now why are you getting all of this, Whit? Like, where's this coming from? And so I want you to kind of tell the story of like how you got to here, and here being like helping women unlock themselves. What do you call it? Being their full flavored self, which I absolutely love.
Full flavored.
And then kind of like what you do. So like what's been your evolution as an entrepreneur? Like what got you started and fired up? Like you have obviously a very unique position in the world that I'm going to let you share.
Yeah.
And then like going from like what got you started to that position to what you do now and where you're going. The floor is yours.
I mean, like I've always been, I mean, I was going to say I've always been an 8, but like truly, I mean, from when I can remember having memories, like I've always been strong-willed. I've always been hard-headed. It was always kind of my way or the highway. And I noticed, like, I got my first job at 15 and I'm 36 now. And I left my job last year when I was 35 to go full-time entrepreneur. So, for all these years, like 20 years, I thought something was wrong with me. But like, I laugh when you and Angie say you guys are certifiably unemployable. I'm like, oh, I just was not meant to play by the rules. Not because I want to be rebellious or, insubordinate or disrespectful. It was never that. Like, I've always been a really hard worker at most jobs I'm ever at. They will tell you that I had a difficult personality, but I was always one of their best workers. They were always trying to make me team leaders and management and like put extra responsibilities on me. But I was always the one like secretly like leading the rebellion of like, this job sucks and they're treating us very unfairly and we should all quit. Like, and I would have employers pull me to the side and be like, listen, you are definitely our best employee. However, you can't be leading like revolutions behind closed doors. Like you can't be turning. I mean, I remember I had a boss. I worked for this Greek guy, Doros. And at this restaurant, I was the bartender and he was like, listen, Whitney, like, you can't be turning my employees against me, right? But it was always this is, if I didn't get it, if it didn't make sense, if I didn't feel like it was fair, if I felt like it was only serving the top 1%, like I just couldn't get behind it. And so I just, and I'll say this, like whether it was in church, because I grew up in the church, I am a Christian. My dad was a pastor. My husband's a pastor. My parents were missionaries. My brother's a missionary. Like we grew up in the church, but like, I never fit in the mold. And the problem was me being an 8 as a woman was hard because we're loud, we're opinionated, we're hard-headed. We're, like you said, if you don't create space for me, I'm just going to make it. You said something in Montana when you were like, Whitney finds the line and then we're over the line, right? Like she's like going to the edge and then we're all of a sudden over the edge. I was always being told like there was something wrong with me. I was always like too much. I was like too opinionated, too loud. Sometimes my energy was too masculine. I was too hard-headed. I was too independent. It was like, I was just all the things. So what happened was like, I hired a life coach. I'll fast forward that story, but I got a lot of inner healing working with her. She gave me a lot of permission to be myself. And I thought, I need to bring this gift to the world. Like more women need to know that there's people out here that if you just pay them, they will literally talk to you and every week and will just show you how to unlock who you really are. And it was such a gift. So I became a life coach. And the first probably 2 years of my business, I've been in business 3 years now, I just did inner healing work. I was like, hey, you need emotional freedom. You need emotional healing. You need inner healing. I got you. Here's what I was finding. Every woman that God was sending to me was also an entrepreneur. They weren't coming to me for help with their business, but here's what was happening. As we were getting them inner healing, I was realizing that where they were stuck in their lives was they were being put in boxes by society that was telling them that they're too much and not enough at the same time. Because if you're too much, that means you're not enough of something else. Like if you're too much, it means you're not this and that. Like you're too much, so you're not this, which means you're too much and not enough. How do you walk that line? I attract a lot of 8s. I attract a lot of women that are like me. And so I was finding that like when we would begin to pull away and peel back the layers and like bust them out of the box, and I basically would just pour gasoline on their fire, it was changing their lives, their relationships, how they parent, how they showed up at their jobs, in their businesses. And finally in 2020, I was like, I just felt like God was like, I want you to be this like prophetic voice for women that own businesses that just need someone to give them permission to be their full flavored selves and walk the journey with them, because it's hard. Like if you start just showing up as your full flavored self, it's hard. Family members aren't going to like it. Sometimes your spouse doesn't like it. Your friends get uncomfortable. Your parents get uncomfortable. People at your church get uncomfortable. You have like ex-coworkers that are like, who does she think she is? And he just said, walk through this with them. And so but I had to walk it myself first. And God was like, listen, if you're going to show women how to stop watering themselves down, you're going to have to figure out where you're doing it and you're going to have to stop. So all of 2020 was this like in January of 2020, God said to me, like, your word for 2020 is, it was like, you're undoing, you're unraveling. And I was like, oh, and he did. And we undid all the things so he could put it all back together. And I just started showing up as myself. And let me tell you, there were people that were here for it, and there were people that were not here for it. And the people that were not here for it let me know. But I also tripled my income in 2020. And I know it's because as I started to show up as my full flavored self, as much as it polarized people, it was magnetic to the women that needed me.
Totally. And here's a distinction. So just for anybody listening to this, I don't study this like Enneagram stuff or anything. I take all the tests, but all the absolute amazing people in my mastermind are obsessed with it. So they just tell me what I am. And I'm like, cool. Like, that's what I'm doing. Okay, I got it. And so go look it up if you're like really intrigued. But like, I got to give you credit because I don't even remember like what month that we met. But
January. I joined the mastermind January 4th.
Okay, so it was January. So we're almost coming up on like 6 months, and like let's just celebrate. I had to. I just totally had to because you've like tripled your income and you're happy. But
yeah, totally.
You said something that I went through back in 2013, 2014 for the first time. And then had to go through again in 2018, which was being willing to be myself. Big distinction. In 2013, it was reactive and compensatory. So it actually hurt and burnt bridges. I was like that little girl in like Firestarter. Like everything I looked at, I was like, burn it down, burn it down, burn it down. And then I had to regress again and kind of have that come back together. And then I was like, wow, there's a very big difference between like being my full flavored self from a place of like, this is who I am versus me convincing the world this is who I am. And I have to say this to you because you won't mind. Like from January to now, it is like two different human beings
100%
in how you show up and how you post. And so like, I just want to give you a kudos, a high five for being the work and doing the work and the testament. But I am going to ask a couple questions about this because you help so many women kind of unlock this inner thing. And the way that you describe the struggle of like, you're too much and not enough at the same time, like that shame paradigm. Like, what do you think is one of the biggest things for people listening that are like, God, I feel like I don't say that or I don't do it. Like, what's like one thing that they can focus on to really start being fully expressed and fully authentic? Because I know the game of unlocking your voice and really being full flavored isn't like I'm going to go eat all 31 flavors today. It's like, hey, I'm going to take another bite today and I'm going to get another bite today. And so what do you think is one of like the most important steps for somebody or a woman to really start unlocking that part of themselves?
Yeah, you really have to take, it's awareness. And the question I ask is, where are you abandoning yourself? Like, where have you abandoned yourself to make other people more comfortable with you? And that's not usually something that anyone has to dig into for too long. If they're willing to sit in a place where they feel safe, which is what I create safe containers where it's like, where you're abandoning yourself, tell me. Let's say it out loud. We know where we are abandoning ourselves and we know where we are sacrificing ourselves to make ourselves more palatable for other people. But we can't do anything about it until we're willing to look it in the face. And that's the work that I do that lights me up and like it makes me emotional. Is like I want to create these safe containers where I'm like, you can say anything here. And then we can walk through it. So that is the question is like, where are you abandoning yourself? And where are you betraying yourself just to make other people more comfortable with you?
I feel like at this part of the show, we should insert like a 3-minute silent pause just for people,
do breath work.
Just for people to sit with that question. Because what comes up for me when you share this and it's just so nuts, like hearing this again. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been there. I've done that. Yep. Okay, cool. Like there really is some science to this Enneagram thingy majigger that I don't understand, but I got it is that, like what really happens, it's this shame cycle, right? And it's literally like a washing machine on infinity loop, right? Like it never, ever, ever stops. And then the more you compensate for it, the more it comes back. The more you turn it down, the worse it gets. And really, like, the only way is to hit the pause button and be like, what is going on? It's like pull the ripcord, hit stop, hit pause. But I think my biggest struggle with it that I'm at now in my life is looking back. Like I have a 4-year-old son, I have a 16-year-old daughter. You have a 15-year-old, right?
Yeah, 15.
15. Yeah, like I'm starting to watch my old behaviors and patterns and societal patterns start to change how my kids show up, and I'm like, I celebrate like their authentic voice
Mhm.
and their everything. But I'm at this
Yeah.
point now, and you and I are pretty similar in age, where it's like I've kind of accomplished everything I've wanted to accomplish in life. Like I have the labels, the titles, the house, the car, the family, like the boom, boom,
Mhm.
boom, boom, boom. And it's like I got it all, and then I'm like, how do I get rid of it all to just be with myself and be happy? And I still have residue from 10 years, 12 years, like 30 years of career work of not being myself that comes up more and more, where I'm like, what was I doing? Like the shame, like basically prevented me from having the ability to have a healthy relationship with myself.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it's this really interesting concept, and I'm so glad that you talk about it and that you help people do it. I do want to unpack this a little bit, though. So I want to talk about church Karen, because everyone's going to be like,
Yeah.
what is this church Karen thing? And so
What is the church
you said
Karen?
it earlier, right? Like you grew up in the church, you're Christian, your
Mhm.
father's a pastor, your brothers are missionaries, your husband is a
Yeah.
pastor, and
Yeah.
you show up full flavored. And so, Whit, why don't you tell us about how your full flavored has created church Karens, and what is this?
So funny, but like anyone that like is a Christian listening to this is like, oh, I already know what the church Karens are. So, we talk about Karens, right? It's like the memes, it's the concept that like it's the Karens, right? It's like the Urban Dictionary. It's like it's the people that always they're committed to misunderstanding you. They want to shut you down. They want you to play by the rules. They want you to stay in the box. They're going to let you know if they don't like what you're doing. They're going to shame you. They're going to be, they're very preemptive. They think they're better than everyone. They need to go around policing everyone on how they live their lives. And the funny thing is, I always say this, and I guess it's not funny, it's kind of sad. I've always said, and some of my other friends that are Christians and entrepreneurs, we talk about this. I get so much support from people that are not tied to any religion, that are just like, in the church world, we call it like the secular world, but it's just people that they don't really care about church. They're not into religion. Those people are so supportive. It's the people inside of religious institutions that I'm a part of that always give me the most pushback. And so I just started calling them the church Karens, because I'm like, I don't really deal with other Karens. I deal with church Karens. It's like I post something and like the pastor's wives or the ministry leaders or people in like churches I used to attend, they all want to come tell me that's not biblical, or you can't tell women to do that, or we should be seen and not heard, right? They're not using that language, but that's what they're saying. They're like, you can't tell women to be their full flavored selves. That's not what we're called to do. We're not called to love ourselves. You can't preach that kind of stuff. You can't. I was just like, man, church Karens are a thing, and they're like out for me.
Yeah, well,
They're triggered by me.
what's funny is like when you say this, like I'm spiritual. Like
Yeah.
here's what I'll say: when you go to combat, there's no way you don't believe in God. Like whatever.
Yeah. There's something.
Whatever
There's
that
something.
looks like to you, right? And I was like,
Mhm.
and then I like look at my hand one day, and I'm like, whatever's holding this existential meat suit together cannot
Yeah.
be explained by silence. Like I got shot
Yeah.
through the hand, and yet my hand fully functions. And I was like, yeah, no human yet got it. Cool. Like we're here. But what I think is so profound about like the lessons and all of this, like I always try to find the principles below it. And when I hear you talk about the church Karens, quote unquote, and the projections really of what they are,
Mhm.
it's the same thread that we have in entrepreneurship. It's the same
Yeah.
thread that prevents people from having success. And it's the same thread that prevents people from being full flavored. It's everybody's throwing glass and or rocks at your house, but nobody's
Yeah.
building their own. And what I love
Mhm.
about you is that you're like, okay, cool. And what you're learning, or what I'm seeing, is your ability to be like, cool, like it kind of bounces off. And you're like, I'm going to keep building my house, and I'm going to keep building my
Yeah.
house. Because, for years, and it still comes up to this day. Like I have event hangovers when we're done, like when you hold space for 8 days and
I had
100
an event hangover
entrepreneurs.
for a week, and I didn't host the event.
Totally. And I mean, you're literally hearing like, my life is over. My husband's leaving. My wife is leaving. I'm like, no, they're not. Take a breath. You're going to make it.
Yeah.
Then a week later, they're like, we made it. We did it. And I'm like, I need to take
And George's
800
dead.
showers, right? In like the next like week. But I
Yeah.
have event hangover. And when I take that space after the event, I spend 6-7 days in silence, and it's nuts. what comes up for me. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because what I've started to notice is that when you're getting the hate, when you're getting the reactions, when you're getting the polarization, the difference between it being effective and ineffective is your ability to either react or respond. And reaction makes it very ineffective. But responding is very, very intentional. And so here's where I know I still have work to do on this, is because after the event, I had all this space and people respect my containers now. I teach them, I use them. I started making up stories for like a good week. Like, you should see my journal. I was like, oh, so-and-so hates me. Like, oh, they're never going to talk to me again. They haven't responded to me because I didn't say something at the event. Like, I actually started creating my own rocks for my own glass house. And luckily I just got to laugh at them and like look at them. But like, how's that process been for you? Because I feel like what really the secret, and I'm leading here, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Like, really the secret to being full flavored is realizing like it's not a decision, it's a practice. And it's a constant practice of like, oh, this is it. Awareness, because is this who I still am? Is this still my belief? It's like this willingness to be like, I'm going to show up. I'm willing to take the feedback. I'm willing to take the projections. And I'm also willing to take a look at it and be like, is this aligned? Is this what I'm going to do? So like, what's that process like for you? Like, how do you go about like, you know, Church Karen's picketing you and you being like, hurrah, right? Or like, oh, I got to take this in. Like, what's your process around that? Like, how do you stay grounded? What are your practices for kind of staying aligned to your flavor? Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I taught a whole masterclass on this probably at the beginning of the year, because my clients, this is funny. So we'll pull up the thread. You guys coached me on this a lot at the event, right? Because I was like, my clients come to me and they want strategy and they want strategy. And I my zone of genius isn't the strategy. Like it's funny because when we left the event, I remember saying to Evan, like your coach, Evan, I said, I've decided that I'm no longer calling myself a business coach. I'm just a coach. Like, I'm just a mindset coach or a life coach, whatever you want to call me, for entrepreneurs. I work with entrepreneurs. I'm not business coaching them. But here's like what I'll say about that. They come to me and they want strategy. They want strategy. And I'm like, listen, the strategy is coming out of your eyeballs. You have strategy. The reason it's not landing with your ideal client is they don't know who the hell you are, because you don't know who the hell you are.
Yep.
You're not being yourself. And so they can't figure out, do I connect with her? Do I not connect with her? She's hot, she's cold. We got to get to the heart of that. And then the strategy will become clear. And so they would come to me and say, well, how do you just not care? And like, how do you just say what you want and teach us your ways? Like I'm some kind of freaking guru. And I'm like, listen, I'm not a guru. Like and so I thought I'll teach a whole class on it. And then I taught a class and it was not what they thought I was going to say, because this was my strategy. It was, you need to say what feels in alignment with you. And you have to be willing to give people permission to be wrong about you. They think I'm going to be able to coach them to where they're going to create this perfect, like you said, they're going to build this perfect glass house where nobody ever disagrees with them. And if they do disagree, they don't vocalize it. And I'm like, no, you have to be willing to in your mind say, I give people permission to be wrong about me today. They get to be wrong about me. I give them permission to do that. And then when they actually, quote unquote, are wrong about you and they voice that to you, because here's the thing, like, George, it's not, people think like, oh, you're so good at deflecting the hate on social media. Like, what people don't see is when I have friends that I've been friends with for 15 years that call me and rip me a new one on the phone for 30 minutes and tell me my delivery is wrong and I should try sugar and not vinegar. And I get that it's all out of love, right? They're looking out for me. I get it. But like, I have to be willing to like, am I willing to stand my ground in those moments? And here's the work. Am I willing for someone that I genuinely respect? Because this is where it comes from. I'm okay with people I don't know not agreeing with me. Where it's hard is when it's people you do love and it's people you do respect and it's people you do hold in high regard. It's people's opinions that you actually care about. When they come and tell me they don't agree with me and they do it publicly on social media, or they call me and tell me, or they don't call me and then they just avoid me for 2 months and don't talk to me. Am I willing to sit inside of the emotions of feeling really bad about that? Because it hurts. Like people think that they're like, how do you not care? And I'm like, no, I never told you guys I don't care what people think. There's some people I don't care. There's some people that I do absolutely care what they think. And I have to ask myself, am I willing for that person to be wrong about me and love them anyways? And then sit in the emotions of it really hurting that they don't agree with me.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not willing to sit in it, then you're right. That's where reactiveness comes from. And that's where convincing and trying to prove my point and defending myself. But I will tell you this, George, the other work I do is this, because I've done that work on myself where I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to let people be wrong about me. And also, am I willing to be wrong?
Totally.
Am I willing to be wrong and accept that? But when I'm willing to give people permission to be wrong about me, and I'm also willing to not always be right, here's how I've kind of eliminated a lot of the trolls on social media. I got to a place where I would either ask myself, is this worth defending my stance? And if it's not, I'll just delete their comment. I don't care. If I wouldn't let you say these things to me in real life, I don't have to let you do this to me on social media. And someone said to me once, oh, so you're just building an echo chamber? And finally one day I was like, yeah, you know what? I am. Because I absolutely believe you need to have people in your circle that don't always agree with you. But here's the difference. It's my circle. Mm-hmm. I create my circle, and I have very specific people in my life, like you, like other people in the mastermind. I have a one-on-one coach. I have my husband. I have close friends that I allow them to, that if they come to me and say, hey, you know, and they start to point out some things, I'm like, oh, okay, I've given this person permission to pour into my life. So let me hear them out. But if it's just some person that I went to church with 7 years ago on Facebook and you want to come like troll me on social media, yeah, I'll just delete your comment and I'll build my own echo chamber all day because I'm not here for it.
Yeah.
And so you have to be willing to do that sometimes. You have to cut people loose.
Totally. Well, God, there's so many threads in this one. Like this is a 10-hour episode. But one big important one, and the closest one, is that your social media, your world, whether it's your email, your phone number, your everything, like you would never give out your phone number and let strangers text you and insult you. Like you would never let people walk into your house and insult you. Like I think this is what people don't understand, is that I've always kind of been like this. Like it's my world, and no, it's not necessarily an echo chamber. It's having tight containers and self-respect and space, and being like, hey, by the way, like this is a privilege, not a right, right? Like you can play, but these are the rules to play, and this is how you play. Just like the same thing with my kids. Like I have a 4-year-old. Like if a little boy comes over and starts hitting my son, that kid is not coming back to my house, and I will be talking to his parents. Like, no, right? Like, it's like, no. And just like at the playground, like I don't let kids sit there and be like, oh, I'm better than you. I'm faster than you are. No, like it's the same thing. And to tie it to something you said earlier, like what I think is so crazy is that because of social media, and this is a deep, like I've meditated on this for too many hours at this point, and I've never unpacked it, but in the world that we live in, the illusion of connection that comes from social media also gives a hiding place for people not to be witnessed, and everything is agendized. And so it's always reactive, or it's always judgmental. And I was like, it's like walking into the restaurant and telling everybody what they ordered for lunch is wrong, right? And I'm like, no, like that's what they get to order. That's what they get to do. And like, that's the illusion of social that I've struggled with for years. And so I've had to have really healthy boundaries, because like you said, like we can be in a restaurant, we can sit next to each other, and the waitress like, these are the specials, and you're like, I don't like it. I'm like, I do. We're not going to sit there and fight about it. Like, you should like it, and it should taste like this, and boom, boom, boom. And so what you said that made it all full circle for me is that you said you have to be willing for them to quote unquote be wrong about you, but also you have to be willing that you might be wrong. And then even deeper is that there really is no right or wrong. It's just a matter of moment and perception of our current view of the world. And I think that's the practice, is like really, really trying on for size. And you saw this at the event, like when people tell me like, no, I'm like, okay, you're a purple dinosaur. And they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, notice how you didn't react, right? Because you're not a purple dinosaur, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's the willingness, and like you said, to sit with it and to be with it. And one of the things we practice all the time is space, right? There's also this addiction to the dopamine, because the reactions are the drug. The indifference is the drug. The judgments are the drug. And I'm going to say this, and I don't think I've said this on a podcast yet. It's because the drug is about being disconnected from yourself, because we're afraid to just sit with the feelings, and it's space and it's practice. And so I don't know, but I pulled this quote up. I want to read this to you because you said something earlier about spirituality and, you know, religion and all of it. And the best definition I've ever found is Brené Brown. She wrote a definition of spirituality. She said, spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Practicing spirituality brings a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to our lives. And so I had to close that. But what you've said and what you've been talking about is that underneath all of it, it's this kind of inextricable commitment to be compassionate for self and accepting of self and create space for self. And then you being like, God, this really is who I am. Is this what I'm going to share with the world? Am I ready to share this? Am I willing to be this person? And so, yeah, I don't know. That was it. That was like a whole full circle loop. I'm going to shut up now.
No, 100%. No, I get it. I'm like, yep, I'm with you.
And then a book recommendation just for everybody. If you haven't read this one yet, read the book. Don't go to the event. You can go Google stories about the event, but there's this book called Radical Honesty. And that book was a big, big, big needle mover for me because there were so many times, and you said it earlier, it's like where I've sacrificed myself to cater to other people because I was afraid of my own feelings. And I had so many judgments of myself of that belief. Like I was like being in the military, being deployed, and also not agreeing with war. Right. Like that was a whole, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm under contract for another like 3 years. Like, what am I doing? I'm going to get in trouble. And I did. But there's a lot of like belief and self-identity like wrapped up into that stuff. And so it's a really good book for anybody called Radical Honesty if you want to check it out. So I'm going to pivot real quick because I want to add some modulation to this one. So ready? Mountains or beach?
Oh, beach.
Beach? You're a beach one?
Yeah. Where's DeLuca? Because we talked about it the whole time we were in Montana. We were like, this is beautiful, but take me to the beach.
No, you got to have a plane to get to the beach, and then you can come back to the mountains. And that's where I am. Okay. Absolute favorite food?
Oh, my God. I love all the foods. I really like ice cream.
What kind? What flavor?
Oh, my God. No, I eat all the flavors, but especially if it has brownie pieces in it.
Ooh, have you ever had black raspberry ice cream?
No.
It's my absolute favorite. You have to add it to your list. It's going to be hard for you to find. Black raspberry.
Okay.
And now I feel like somebody needs to make a black raspberry with brownie
pieces.
That's so,
I'll do it. I'll just put them
so
together.
legit. So legit.
That sounds so good.
I'm like wanting ice cream. I just left the gym and I haven't eaten yet. And I'm like, oh, now I'm talking about ice cream. Okay, cool. Like I wonder why I'm addicted to my love handles. Got it. Nailed it.
No.
Yeah.
There's that.
Absolute favorite book that you've ever read?
Honestly, you're going to be like, what? I read this book like 3 times when I was in elementary school. I've always been a big reader. I read the book Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry.
Oh, I've never read it or heard of it.
Favorite book ever.
What is it? What's it about?
It's basically about a little girl. It's basically about a little Black girl that grows up, and it's just that coming of age and just seeing the difference in races. And it won a lot of awards, but yeah, just watching her family deal with racism, and it's such a good book. Such a good book.
Yeah, I'll have to add it to my list. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a children's book. It's like a young adult book, but I remember reading it like 3 times.
Yeah, like The Little Engine that I watched last night with my son, and I started crying. I'm like, I need to do this. I don't believe in myself enough. Where else do I hold myself
we
small?
need to watch The Brave Little Toaster. That'll be a tearjerker.
I was like, no. Like, kids' movies are the best Trojan horses for self-growth. Because it like rips me open.
They're like, Daddy, why are you snotting on yourself? It's like, I'm fine.
He literally said that to me yesterday, and I was like a tear of joy when the little train like made it to the top of the mountain. Oh, it just makes my heart happy. It makes my heart happy. Okay, so now I'm gonna get back to gasoline. I want to get back to gasoline. You are gasoline. Like,
I am. I'm about to do a whole branding shoot, so it's gonna be fine.
I can't wait. I want to see like whatever that movie was with that girl that could look at things and burn them on fire.
You're talking about, oh my God, you're talking about Carrie.
Yeah, whatever that
girl was.
She
was like possessed.
Yeah, but she had a good heart. She had bad parenting and like some bad stuff.
She just had a lot of Karens and then she snapped. So I'm just going to be Carrie without the snap.
So one of the things that I want to say that I've learned about myself in this process of like entrepreneurship and self-discovery is that like you're an 8, I'm an 8, and I only know what that means a little bit, but you know, you said something earlier about like you do it because you care. And one of the things that I think is so powerful is that like, in my opinion, you have an extremely high level of integrity and morals and values. And I actually have it in my notes to do a podcast on how, people take my passion for like aggression or like my
Me too.
polarization. Yeah, totally.
Me too.
Yeah.
People are like, you're on level 5,000 all the time. And I'm like, well,
yeah.
yes.
And I think what's like for me, and I can't speak for you, but I'm going to ask you this question. Like for me, my moral compass or my values came from growing up without them and always having them broken and nobody standing for them and doing it. And so I have this high belief that like the only way to be different is to hold this like very high line of value. Like I will always be like the Robin Hood if I can and do all of it, from that place. But like, where do you think like this came from for you? Like, have you always felt like you wanted to share your voice? And by the way, when you talked about like leading a revolution, that happened in all my jobs. I was fired from all of them before the military.
Listen, I'm like Katniss Everdeen, just all the time. People are like, what is she doing now? God, no one can keep her in a box.
And then you should see my record jacket from 12 years in the Marine Corps, the amount of write-ups that I got for insubordination. But that's where I learned
I feel so seen and heard right now.
That's where I learned the word tact, because they're like, you're the only person who can tell us to F off without saying it and not getting in trouble. I'm like, that's the definition of tact.
Yeah. That's what Brad
Barbary.
Costanzo said to me at the event. And it changed everything for me. He was just like, you have this gift to like call people out on their BS. And you can be like very aggressive, but people are here for it because it's in love and they can tell.
Totally. And now I have two questions and I'll start there. One of the things that I notice about you though is you're very similar to me. It's not about living in aggression. It's about having the range to modulate, to be a pattern interrupt, or to be a, hey, like pay attention for a moment. Like, and I think that that's one of your gifts, but that has to be practiced. And that goes back to,
yes, which I got a lot of coaching on that at the event. I'm so good at it with my clients. I can see it so clearly. When I was getting ready for this podcast and I was like, when George says, what do you do? Because I was like, God, everyone always says, what do you do? And then it's like you said, it depends on the context. You always say something different depending on the audience. It's the same thing, but I was like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And I kept thinking, all I'm going to say is I show rebel entrepreneurs how to be polarizing without being assholes. Yeah. And I'm really good at that with my clients, but then I have to come to like you and our mastermind because sometimes you guys are like, I think you're leaning towards asshole. Then it's fine. We're going to reel it in. So I always want to be in the work that I'm doing with my clients is the point that I was trying to make.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And it's such an important topic to understand though. And like we talked about this and just like, I didn't pick on Whit, but I'm incredibly proud because we did 3 days of our mastermind together before we took a day off and then did a public event and helped unlock, 60 other entrepreneurs. And I know you because I am you. I'm like, we're long lost brothers and sisters and we're pretty close in age too. So I don't even know, like I'll avoid the ancestry test at this point.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, like I always do this as well. Like I've always been able to push because I was like, don't tell me I can't do it. Don't tell me I can't do it. Don't tell me it won't work. Don't tell me you're not doing it. And I've always had the voice. And then I think it gets you to a certain point, and it got me to a very, very big point. But then I also realized that I was never leaving space for myself either. Right? Because like it was always go, 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 go. I'll out hustle. I'll outwork you. And my favorite one is like, I'll out suffer you. I was like, do not.
I will out-martyr you all day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, don't get into this with me. I was like, oh, you think you suffer? I'm like, watch how bad I can suffer. Right. And it was like this crazy badge of honor. But I love like what we talked about a lot was range and being able to practice the range and the modulation of it all. And it's a gift. If you do client work, if you have kids, if you do any sort of coaching, I mean, crap, even if you sell physical products, you need space to allow people to have their own experience and then come in. And it's really cool to always be in that work because the edge is always getting greater, but you have to sharpen it. And so I'm going to go back to my original question, which was, where do you think like this high level of integrity of like morals and values has kind of come from for you? Like, where did you get, cause like for me, like I know plenty of people that are like, we'll just follow the go or they'll do this or like, oh, it's fine, but I'll do it anyways. But I love that you're like, no, like I'm going to stand for something like this matters. Like, where did that come from? And like, how do you stay plugged into that? Because I know what the resistance feels like sometimes. So I kind of love to hear about that.
Well, as eights, like one thing about us, George, as eights is our motive is always like protection, self-protection, and justice. Like we really fight for justice for us, for other people, for the underdogs, for people without a voice. So I have always gravitated to that. Like, even when I watch movies, like, I mean, I'm obsessed with the Hunger Games. Like, I love Katniss. I'm like, she's powerful. She's a woman. It's not about her. It's about people. I had a really amazing upbringing. You know, I really think, though, that where I really unleashed myself in my 30s was I had an amazing upbringing, but there were always these pockets, whether it was at school and sometimes it was family members, whether it was knowingly or unknowingly. It was like, I think sometimes they just didn't know what to do with me because I just was so much, and I was just so opinionated, and I was just like strong-willed and stubborn, and I was going to do it my way, and I was going to set the world on fire, and like nobody was going to tell me no. And I was just like, I guess like Carrie, right? Like, I'm just looking at everything and setting everything on fire. And I think my parents were just like, what's happening right now? Right. So like, she's just blowing everything up. I'm like 2. And I'm just like, I mean, my mom would tell me that so my brother's 2 years younger. So when I was like 6 and he was like 4, if we would go to McDonald's and they would order him like a cheeseburger with like no pickles and he would get pickles, I would like march up there like with the cheeseburger and be like, listen, lady, the kid said no pickles. Right. And I'm like 6. I'm like, give the kid I mean, she was just like, I mean, I remember my dad telling me when he pastored, we lived, well, I guess I won't say where, but we lived somewhere. My dad was pastoring. We had moved away from home. And I just remember the church was being like, I was in middle school. I was like in 6th grade. They were being awful to him. It was awful. They were so abusive, so mean. And I guess I don't remember this, but she said there was some kind of like meeting with the church and the board, and they were like attacking my dad. And so I would have been like, what, like 13? I mean, my mom said I like stood up and like went off on these people. And my mom was like, we were going to stop you, but then we were just like, well, she's right. Like, she's got it handled. And they were, I mean, I don't remember. She was like, we just let you go. And so I think the fact that my parents didn't know what to do with me, and sometimes I think they subconsciously tried to water me down a little bit. I don't think it was out of love, right? I think that they saw the way the world responded to me, and they just didn't want me to have to deal with that kind of rejection. So I think sometimes it was more just like, can you just like, for your own good? But they also, on the other hand, kind of fostered this like, own it, say it, be who you want, who cares, like walk it out. But the interesting thing was, like, as I got into my like later teens in high school and then in my 20s, I was just getting a lot of messages, like especially from the church and like some friend groups and like school, that like I was just too much and not enough. And I think I just hit my breaking point at my 30s. And I just was like, I felt suffocated. And I was like, I can't live like this anymore. Like, I just want to be myself and be okay with letting the chips fall where they may. Relationally, like, who's here? If people are here for it, I want to make space for them. If they're not here for it, I want to learn how to deal with that rejection so I can let them go instead of changing who I am to keep them in my space. And that's what I help my clients do. Because again, like, I wasn't making money in my business until last year, when I really finally, like, it was almost like I got to where I was like 80% myself. But when I unlocked that other 20%, it was like the clients came. I mean, I remember telling my coach, I think they're falling out of the sky. Where are they coming from? I wasn't doing anything different strategically. And so women come to me and they're like, how can we do what you did? And I'm like, well, I'm going to show you, but it's going to be hard. But it's pulling that story out of them. I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question. I had a really good upbringing.
Well, no, what I love is that I love, listen, our parents do the best they can with how they were raised and their paradigm and what got them here. And like, I've obviously done a lot of work on this. I've done to the jungle many times, and like lots of silent work and breath work and all of it. But I love that, like, really, we all, I think as eights too, we always like to be like, we can just win the race right now. Like, we decided today we're going to run a marathon, so tomorrow we can win. Right. And we're like, can we just skip the whole process?
Oh my God.
Right? Like,
this is me.
Yeah. Like, and like, I don't know, like, I tell everybody listening, I don't know anything about this Enneagram stuff. I'm learning as Whit's talking, like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, oh yeah, I do that too. And I do that too. But I think what's so important, and for me, took me until I was 36 probably to be like, wow, there is no finish line. It's a journey. This is a part of it. Like your upbringing was like, that's a part of it. Like me building a business and walking away was a part of it. Me actually not being myself was a part of it. Me watering myself down was a part of it. But all of those parts were required to now be at this part. And I'm sure in 10 years, we're going to laugh and look back as we're visiting DeLuca's Island with sea turtles and avocado trees and rescues and, then flying to the mountains like, oh, we thought we had it then. Right. Like, and then there's another level and another level. And so, for me as a quote unquote 8, I think like I had to really practice falling in love with it. It was about the inputs I gave it every day, not about the results of the inputs. Cause I was like, I'm going to go do that and have that and do it now and then be done with it and then not really know what to do. So no, it answered my question beautifully. And I absolutely love it. And I don't know if this is true for you too. What happened to me when I like found my voice is that I would share enough of it for people to be like, God, he's being in his voice and he's being authentic and he's being vulnerable. But then I would sugarcoat 10% of it.
Yeah.
To be like,
that's what I was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said something earlier.
It was self-protection.
Totally. You said something earlier. It's like I was literally sacrificing my gift in order for people to perceive me a certain way.
I was trying to I say this all the time. This is where my full flavored comes in. I'm like, if you're not being full flavored, it means you're watering yourself down to try to make yourself more palatable so that people can palate you and tolerate you and they can digest you better. So basically I'm going to betray and sacrifice who I am. So, Church Karen over there can be more comfortable when she reads my post.
Yeah. I love that because like I'm happy with how spicy I am on the Scoville scale. Like, so I can't get upset if somebody chooses to eat it. And like, that's spicy. I'm like, I told you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm fiery, homie. Like
that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. And
being too much is a superpower. I really learned that in 2020.
Ooh.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I got to get with Katie, but I got to figure out how to brand this in. But like, I somehow want my tagline to be, basically, actually, Katie just said, next time you launch your mastermind, Whitney, we're just going to put, you pay me, I pour gasoline on your business. And I was like, okay. But also like, because here's what I hear a lot, and we can pull up this thread. I hear a lot of women that have built platforms around like, oh, dear sister, you're not too much. You're perfect the way you are. You're not too much. And I'm like, wait a second. We're still telling women that being too much is a problem. So we're trying to tell them they're not. I'm like, so women will still try to change themselves. I'm like, how about this? How about you are too much and it's your freaking superpower. And I'm going to show you how to use it to be the woman, the wife, the mom, the leader, and the businesswoman that you need to be. It's your superpower. It's not, oh, you're not too much. Yeah, you are. You are too much for a lot of people. But guess what? Those aren't your people. And it's your superpower. And we're going to channel it.
Yeah. And
that's my thing.
And I'll say, it's the first time I'm here for it. Like, I'm totally here for it. Like, that's my wife, and not even too much. Like, it's a gift. It's the people that change the world. It's the ones that make a difference. It's the one that find new edges and find new ways and new innovations and all of it. Like, it is an absolute gift. And I love that. Like, being too much is a superpower.
Yeah, it is your superpower.
And I love, like, literally, like, you're like, you pay me, I pour gasoline on your business. I'm like, you pay me, I turn the light up in your business. I'm like, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah,
we're saying the same thing. But like the truth is that like it took me losing lots of millions of dollars to realize the tools in the box didn't matter. It was the person using them. And that was when and I had to lose all of it again to realize that I kept trying to get new tools and I stopped working on the person that was using them. Like, I'm not even strong enough to pick up the hammer right now. I can't get pissed that it doesn't work. Right. Like,
yep.
I absolutely love it. Okay. So actually, before I forget, so there's a lot of people listening to this, a lot of dudes, a lot of women, a lot of everything. Where is the best place for them to get you, to connect with you, to help you pour gasoline on their fire, their too much superpower? Give it to them.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you said there's men and women, because I had a man. So my mastermind's getting ready to open up. And so I was posting that I have this exclusive wait list where you can get on the wait list. And I noticed that like a guy had put himself on my wait list. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I'm pretty clear, like in my marketing, that I work with women. And then I thought, I've been working with women for 3 years, and maybe with men, we just don't create the space for them to even feel like they can say they also water themselves down. So point being, I will, and I don't normally do this, but I have a super top secret email address that I literally give out to my team, or I give out to very specific connections that I make, because it comes directly to my phone, and I'm very protective about the notifications I get on my phone. But like, this email address comes directly to my phone because they're emails that I don't want to miss, and I don't want them to get lost in the shuffle. So men or women, if you just want to pour gasoline on your business, or just you in general, you need to write this email address down, and do not give it to anyone. This is only for you guys listening, and ladies. It is gasoline@whitneybarbary.com. So gasoline@whitneybarbary.com. If you want to reach out to me, because like I said, I mean, this is actually perfect timing because my mastermind is getting ready to open up. And I actually have, as of this weekend, 2 spots open for one-on-one clients, because I'm kind of narrowing down how many I take. If you email gasoline@whitneybarbary.com and you put like MOG in the subject line for Mind of George, I will know where you came from. You can write whatever subject line you want, but I need you to put MOG at the beginning so I know where you came from and you didn't just get my email address from someone else. If you don't do that, I probably won't open it. That's how top secret this address is. If you don't put MOG in your subject line, I'll probably push it to spam. And then you can say whatever you want inside of the body. Just let me know. We can connect. We can connect.
I love it. Yeah. And by the way, I'm so bad at this. I'm like, if you ever want to come party with Whitney and I, let me know as well. But like, go check it out. Go send it. And I'm going to challenge you to be as creative as you can with the subject line around lighting something on fire. Like, I want to see these, because she'll screenshot them and send them to me, and I want to be like,
I totally will.
I'm like, I want to know who has like the best tagline or hook around like lighting something, lighting themselves, lighting their business on fire.
Well, I'm going to work with because George, because you're working with me on this. We got away from like all one-on-one. Like, I had like 11 private clients. They were getting weekly hour-long sessions, and I was doing this and doing that. So like, now that we're changing up my business model and I'm only keeping like 2 or 3 one-on-one clients at a time, and everything else is my mastermind, I'm very specific about who I work with now because my time is very limited. So the more creative you are in the subject line, I'm going to be like, yes. And you will probably be the first person I reach back out to.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see it. And by the way, we have in our mastermind, we have a channel on Slack where we like post our wins every day, all of us members. And I know Whit's going to be like, look at this one. Look at this one. Look at this one. I'm excited to see your branding with Katie as well. She's an absolute genius.
She is.
She literally is like the queen of taglines, branding, and messaging. I'll have to have her on the podcast as well. Katie, if you're listening, we'll get you on the podcast. We'll definitely get you on the podcast. Okay. Now, this is my favorite question. It's my favorite question. So everybody's listening to this. I've had takeaways. I've had a ton. I have a page of notes in front of me, and I can't wait to like review them and share them. But everybody's listening to this, and you have the opportunity to tattoo one thing on their soul that they'll remember forever. Like, you have a tattoo gun, it's going on their soul. They'll think about it. They'll remember it. They'll have it. What would be your soul tattoo for them to take away from this episode to carry forth for the rest of their life?
Being too much is a superpower.
I love it.
That's literally it. Yeah.
I love it.
Because too much is different for everyone, right? Everyone, even if you're not someone that has a personality like mine, all of us, doesn't matter who you are on the Enneagram, if you're timid, doesn't matter. We've all been told somewhere that something about us is too much. If you're not like me and you're not outgoing and you're more reserved, we're like, you're too quiet, you're too nice, we've all been told we're too much of something, but whatever it is that people are telling you you're too much of is probably your superpower. Whatever that is, it's your superpower, and you're not supposed to change it. Not to make other people more comfortable with you.
I'm going to give that a kudos and let everybody listen to that again. That is probably the most wisdom, profound, deep statement that there is, because every point in my life, my wife is like, you should do this. And I resist it for 2 years, 3 years. Then I go do it. Like the most life-changing thing ever, right? Or everything. Yeah. It's like really, there's some wisdom in that, to sit with that. Too much is a superpower. I absolutely love that. Will you do me a favor? Will you spell your name for people so they get it right?
Yeah, right? Because how many apparently 2 Barbarys. There's some Barbary pirates somewhere, so.
And I spelled Barbary wrong the first couple of times, so I want you to spell.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Oh, I don't even know.
Whitney Barbary.
Yeah. So anyways, Whitney Barbary, it's Whitney, just the normal spelling of Whitney. And then Barbary is B as in boy. So BARBARY. So whitneybarbary.com.
Yeah, and I
Email
needed
me.
that. It's probably easy, but I misspell names all the
No,
time.
it's not. I had never heard that last name before I got married, and I was like, Barbary, what
That's
is this?
actually
They're pirates
that's the
off the
first
Barbary
time
coast.
besides pirates that I've ever seen that. Like I've never known anybody with that name. It's kind of dope.
Yeah, it is kind of dope.
It is. And that's
I
your
didn't think so at first, but it's growing on me. Well, my maiden name was Taylor, and Whitney Taylor is a pretty sweet name. But
Whitney Taylor's a pretty sweet name, but you kind of embody like a gasoline pirate. So,
yeah,
like,
and I can drink rum at 10 a.m. and it's fine if I'm a pirate. So,
oh my God, I love you. I think I'm gonna nickname you the gasoline pirate. Like I don't know, it just feels good right now. I'm gonna get you a T-shirt that says gasoline pirate.
I don't think that's as good as Internet Man, but fine.
No. I listen. If you guys want to know the story of Internet Man, you're gonna have to come and join the mastermind because
you have to.
We were at dinner, our mastermind celebration dinner after 3 awesome days, and we got to hear this story from DeLuca and her husband, and I got nicknamed Internet Man. And then I told the story on stage at the public event, and then somebody went and made me a pink Internet Man shirt, and I was like, my life is complete. Like, I've made it. I have nothing left to do. Here's my mailing address. Like, let's just keep this debauchery going.
Okay.
I love it. Well, it was an absolute pleasure, Whit. It was fun.
This
It
was
was
fun.
a party. We'll have to do it again. We'll have to do it. We'll have to do one in person. Like, we'll get a whole party together at the next mastermind
We should
event.
do it.
We'll start lighting people's business on fire.
Yeah.
Get their branding done. Yeah,
oh my God, we could totally do hot seat.
Ooh, we could do a live hot seat at the event and like literally like just record it as a podcast as part of like the event itself. I'll add it to the schedule.
Let's get Katie to call it something better though. Hot fire seat. I don't know. It's something.
Well, we normally call them hot seats, and it's kind of a line with you pouring gasoline on people's businesses. So I love it. I'm here for it. I'm here for all the things. The stickers are being made. So any parting words of wisdom, anything left that you want to leave people with?
No, just being too much is a superpower, and stop betraying yourself to make other people more comfortable with you. Like, I can't stress that enough.
I have to share that, like, that's probably one of my biggest takeaways, and the way that you write it with, like, stop watering yourself down to be more palatable. Like, there's so much depth and wisdom in that, and I think that can apply to anybody anywhere in their life. And I'm I'm done watering myself down for myself too, right? Because there's parts of me I was like, oh, I'm a little too extra for myself today, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. All right, I'm gonna wrap the episode. So everybody.
All right.
That was another episode of the Mind of George Show. Of course, I'm going to cue the outro in a minute, but make sure you reach out to Whit. Best creative subject line, hit her up. She told you the email. She told you what to do. I would have to share that my favorite takeaway from that entire episode is all along the threads of never sacrificing yourself or your gift to cater to your clients, to anybody else, because really, I say this all the time, you're stuck with one relationship for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not, and that's the one with yourself. And so you might as well honor it, love it, lean into it, and practice it. So go check out Whit, hit her up in the emails, get in my mastermind, get in hers, come party with us, come party with us in Montana at the next event. I'll be out in front of all of that stuff. I'll let you guys know when that's coming. But either way, have an absolute beautiful day. You will either see me in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But now it's time to cue the outro.